good kitty goose.
Welcome back, it's Rich, and in this episode, Rich reviews The Marvels. Let's do it. Welcome back to Rich Reviews, no nonsense movie chat from the UK. If you like what you see today, don't forget to check out my other videos. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. This is a spoiler-free review, so don't worry if you've not watched The Marvels just yet. I'm not going to go into any specific detail like that. I'll try and keep it as light as possible, but it is a bit of a longer one. So The Marvels is the latest MCU film in the multiverse saga. It's directed by Nia DaCosta and stars Brie Larson as Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel, Ayman Balani as Kamala Khan's Miss Marvel, and Teyonah Parris as Monica Rambeau. We also get Samuel L. Jackson back as Nick Fury, and newcomer Zoe Ashton as Dar-Ben, our latest big bad villain, out to cause troubles and strife for our trio of superpowered heroines. This is the second film in the Captain Marvel series, the first being sandwiched right between Infinity War and Endgame, so naturally that film did a monstrous amount of money at the box office, over $1 billion. It also follows hot on the heels of the Disney Plus series Miss Marvel and WandaVision, where Monica Rambeau got a new super light thingy ability and Miss Marvel got hold of her bracelet. If you're looking to watch this film and have not seen any of the others, or maybe you've seen Captain Marvel but not the Disney Plus shows mentioned here, I'd at least watch Miss Marvel. The Monica Rambeau part from WandaVision is fairly brief scene and can probably be found on YouTube with some explanations around it to bring you up to speed, but each character and their abilities is briefly explained somewhat briefly in the film. So, can our heroes save the day? How does this link to the wider universe? Was this film actually any good? The critics don't think so, but let's see. So the plot follows our trio of heroes whose powers become intertwined due to their cosmic power bracelet and them touching some space energy war, which provides a means to flip from one location to another instantly. This causes our ladies to teleport without control between locations when their powers are used. And this is all seen in the trailers as you see the confusion on their face during fights. All this is happening while trying to bring an end to the villainous Dar-Ben, our big bad baddie of baddies on a quest to rescue a dying homeworld by trying to somehow steal sun, air and water from other planets to regenerate things back home, which unfortunately bit the dust and is now in dark after the antics in the original Captain Marvel film, earning Carol Danvers the name of the Annihilator, again as mentioned in the trailers. Our heroes must learn to use this new teleporting issue and work better as a team to bring an end to the dastardly antics of Dar-Ben and move things along smoothly in order to bring around the next MCU film, while hoping to bring in a chunk of cash at the box office for the already ultra-wealthy Disney. So let's talk first about what worked. Did anything actually work? It's widely known since the review embargo shortly lifted that many critics and famous sites have slated this film for all sorts of reasons. But I think, some of this did work. The standout for me has got to be Miss Marvel. Like the Disney Plus series, she's superb as the new member to the team and to the MCU, with the same excitement shown on screen by her character as I would have if I were casting the next film myself. She brings such a likeable presence to the role and steals the screen in each scene she's in. Likewise, the family that she interacts with, they're also fun to watch and provide a really different kind of presence away from the typical kind of tropes and people that you see in most blockbuster films. Her abilities to create light and make it a solid object that you can hit or smash or stand on is the most clearest to understand in the film between all the different females' abilities. She uses it to great effect with some creative ideas, and she certainly can hold her own in battles. Although at times I do remind myself that she's not got any kind of super strength at all. So some of the scenes where she doesn't come out on top in a fight would have probably broken every bone in her body, to be fair. I found the effects throughout to be great, but to be fair, they're all great in pretty much every Marvel film. And most films nowadays, it's just the kind of the normal thing that we all expect. And long gone are the days of being blown away by visuals, unless there are some very, very creative choices made. This is standard affair CGI then in that case, but nothing stood out to me as being poor. Just maybe bar the odd slight scene here and there, but very little, so I've got no quibbles here. Brie Larson herself, she's been a real target for criticism over the past few years as Captain Marvel, and carries frequent comments of being a wooden and uninterested actor for that role with a very cold and blank personality. And I kind of get that a little bit, but maybe not as much as some people make out. I feel she steps up significantly in this and provides a much more down-to-earth and realistic performance as Carol Danvers, and I found her enjoyable to watch. Some of her moments in fights really impact just how strong she is. I watched this in IMAX and her punches when angry really land hard with thumping bass, and it does cement her as being one of the most powerful characters in the MCU, maybe even the most powerful. I like the look of her suit in the first half of the film, more on that later, and she puts in some great emotional scenes involving the problems she caused in the first Captain Marvel film. It kind of does harken back to that in this, and it does make you see her actions do warrant the anger of the new Kree baddie villain somewhat. We get much more of the cats in this film, starring Goose that you saw in the previous entry, who turned out to be a flurkin and projects multiple tentacles to swallow up pretty much anything 10 times his size. He then contains things like this in his stomach, only to vomit said object back out or person later shortly after. This is heavily leaned into in one point in this film to provide a story thread where this ability can actually be put to some use, and it was a scene that certainly divided many critics, but I found it quite fun. I actually chuckled at it several times, but I can see how this might not work for some people, but I genuinely had a bit of fun with this one. I thought it was quite funny. The fight scenes throughout were great, with imaginative and creative ideas involving how our trio of ladies work together to try and control, as a team, their power-switching teleporting issues. Early scenes are absolute mayhem and chaos, as they've got no idea what's happening, and it makes for some great shots and moments, but once they learn to control it, later fight scenes become equally great, but in a totally different way, in that they become a solid kick-ass style unit, dishing out some brutal moves in a much more controlled manner. It's really good to watch, and I thought there was some great creative ideas in this. There's one mid-credit scene if you stay after the end of the film, which is great. It's well worth watching, but there's no end credit scene, so just the mid-credit scene. It opens up so much more opportunity and possibility of where the MCU may go, and hopefully they will lean in and use this. These post-credit scenes are starting to stack up now. You start looking back at what's been shown and promised so far, they have a tendency to go nowhere, or they've been lingering for a long time. So I really hope this one does. But all in all, for me, there was plenty to like in this. But there are plenty of things that I didn't like as well. So what didn't work? Well, for me, I just didn't engage with Teyonah Parris's character Monica Rambeau. She's got no alter ego name, which is kind of rare in this universe, so she's just Monica Rambeau in a suit. But she has some kind of light ability, which she tries to explain what it is 3 times in the film, and each time it's explained in a different way. And it kind of just makes no sense to then what you actually see her doing on screen when she uses it. So early on she talks about it being, the ability to be able to see light, actually see light, as in light beams. But then goes into a fight and just starts to go kind of semi-invisible and allows objects and knives to pass straight through her. I mean, that looks cool and it works for her, but it just doesn't seem to sit right with how she explained it or how that works in conjunction with light. It just kind of made no sense. Also, I thought her costume looked a bit out of place compared to the rest of the MCU characters. Not just this film, but just across the MCU. People seem to have some kind of real-world practical use to their costumes. They either fit with their race, or they're more kind of a military or some kind of armor in some way. They don't really come across as a superhero, kind of old-fashioned style comic costume. They seem to work. But this one just seemed more like a bit of a cosplay type outfit. I don't know, it just didn't sort of work for me, this. She also carries a grudge throughout this film that has been with her since a very, very young child. But yet she seems to remember it as clear as day 30 years later. And I don't think it's for the right reasons. It keeps bringing up for most of the film. And it's just not something that any normal human would carry all their life. It just kind of seemed off. That really didn't work for me. And again, it's all relating to this character. Now, speaking of costumes, as I mentioned earlier, more on this later, Captain Marvel gets a refit partway through the film into a new costume. but it kind of looks much worse than the one she was currently wearing. It's like a fancy dress version of what she's already got. So it just looks cheaper with a poor quality star on the front and just nowhere near as good as original suit. I just thought that's a bad choice. And it's not going to excite any figures collectors who want to purchase a figure of her that ends up on the toy shelves in that. Also, again, the latest MCU villain. Man, it's just not good. Dar-Benn's just another forgetful villain of which Marvel is guilty of time and time again. But this time, she is super forgetful. This villain essentially is a successor to Ronan the Accuser. And for those of you who can't remember, he's the blue-faced hooded guy that holds the big hammer and the purple stone in Guardians of the Galaxy. Yet out of virtually everyone on this planet, her face is not blue and she just has zero presence or weight to her role. As an actress, she's great in other things, there's nothing wrong with her, but the writing here that she's been given and the creative choice and role just don't do her any favours at all. When we think of Thanos and Loki, even people like Vulture, Hela, Killmonger, Mysterio, I mean there's more. She's absolutely miles away from anything close to being those. The film itself can also be very confusing at times. It's pretty clear that there was an idea for a direct sequel to the first Captain Marvel film, but it kind of becomes mixed into this one as some bits of flashbacks and other things, and it just makes it a bit of a mess overall. There were many reshoots for this due to poor test screenings, so that's evidence of the huge budget, and I think this kind of past is what that film was originally supposed to be. It's choppy, this. It has some strange edits here and there, and it doesn't have the flow or connected line running through that gives clarity to a defined start, middle, and end as one complete connecting story with the kind of the purpose, how it's resolved, and an ending, whether it's fully open or it's closed at the end. It's a really thin plot and story idea, and it's actually identical to the 1987 Mel Brooks sci-fi Star Wars parody film Spaceballs. Like, absolutely identical, but I'll say no more because I don't want to spoil things. So my final thoughts, and controversial this may be, but I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 5. The film was blasted by critics and Rotten Tomatoes, yet the audience score is now really starting to trend quite high. There's a large amount of positive feedback on Facebook with the comments that suggest this is a very mixed view out there. Now, fortunately, for myself at least, I'm in the better half in that I kind of liked it a little bit. I do get, though, that this is not going to be for everybody. It's certainly not one of Marvel's best by far. Neither the company Marvel or Captain Marvel herself. Because Kamala Khan's Miss Marvel just steals all her thunder, to be honest. It's much lower down on the list now of around 30 or so Marvel films that we've got. So maybe this is going to sit for me perhaps in the kind of 20s to 30 range. But Thor Love and Thunder still being my least favourite. What a nightmare. So, critics and audience scores really mixed there. But if you do want to go and watch it, what would you do? Do you take a mate, take a date, or stay up late and watch it on streaming when it comes out there? Well, it's a Marvel film, and if you're invested in this continuity, then of course, get your mate, go and watch it like I did. Watch it on IMAX if you can, it's good. I watched it in 3D and it seemed a bit forced 3D, this one. I don't normally notice that, but that was a little bit odd. But, you could even take a date, as this is trending as being quite appealing as well to less hardcore fans. If your date's a female, it's 3 lead, female actresses. And there's been a lot of female reviews out there. So maybe a casual audience member would enjoy this one. But I had a kind of, 6 or 7 out of 10 decent enough time with this and a few smiles. But I did go in expecting worse. So I came out fairly pleasantly surprised, even though it has got its issues. Anyway, what did you think of the Marvels, good or bad? Leave a comment below, but until next time, keep smiling, peeps.